Welcome in, everybody, to the Let's Talk Sports Fantasy Football Show for Week 5. My name is Ryan Larrison from Rotoballer, Yards for Fantasy, and Expert Ranker for Fantasy Pros. I'm joined today, as always, by my brother, Matthew Larrison. Matt, you ready to talk some Week 5 fantasy football and some Thursday night football?
Yes, sir. We were treated to a nice Thursday night game last week. I don't know what we're gonna get this week, but still happy for it. We're
Yeah,
still gonna watch it.
it might be a little rough this week compared to other weeks. But for fantasy, we should have some good performances,
Yeah.
especially with the Bears' defense being as crappy as it is. Guys, real quick, I'm just going to hit the sponsors real quick, and then we're just going to dive right into some Thursday night football chatter and answer any questions that you have. Underdog Owners Box, use promo code LTS, get up to $100 on your first deposit in terms of a price match. Pretty self-explanatory. You've got all your prop bets on Underdog and Owners Bucks that you can do daily fantasy on both sites, including on Thursday nights, Sundays, and for Monday nights. I use both these apps pretty religiously. I know Matt uses both of them as well, especially Underdog for a lot of his betting. So make sure that you go and check both of those apps out. Use promo code LTS, get up to a $100 price match, and it helps us out quite a bit. We've already got Farquad in here. 6 o'clock's probably a better time for him. He says he's going to be on the road soon. Start Kirk or Tank Dell, and then he's got a flex Pierce, Dell, or Rashi Rice. Thanks, guys. And he says go Bills for this week. Boy, Christian Kirk or Tank Dell, Matt. I think I'm leaning Kirk this week.
Yeah. We were worried about Kirk at first, but it looks like Trevor Lawrence has gotten back into that, the comfortability that he has with Kirk. And we're kind of starting to worry about Calvin Ridley a little bit, but, obviously I think he'll pick it up as well. But Kirk's going to be very consistent, I think, for the rest of the season as he was last year. So definitely Kirk. And flexing, it's tough. It's very tough because Pierce actually did pretty decent last week. He's looking better, but I like the boom aspect of Tank Dell. I know he had an off week last week, but it just really depends on if Nico Collins is just absorbing all of the targets, and if Dell can just get 5 or 6, he's got that explosiveness that he could take one for 30 yards for a touchdown. So it's tough. I want to say Dell, but obviously the smarter choice would probably be Pierce because you're going to get the consistency, but if you want to flex for a boom chance, I would take Dell. I would.
Yeah, if you need the upside, I think Dell is the way to go. But for me personally, I think I'm just playing Pierce, and I'm going to take the hopeful, 15 to 20 touches that he's going to get. He's been really inefficient, but last week, like you said, he started to turn it up. It was a good matchup. This week's matchup, not terrible by any means. So may as well keep firing him up and hoping that he produces. And hey, maybe you trade him. Maybe you get the trade. If he gets 2 good weeks in a row, you could probably get something good in return for Pierce with how bad RB is this year. We've got Jay over on YouTube. There it goes. He says Terry McLaurin or Aaron Jones in the flex. This is a great question because McLaurin has the matchup against Chicago, which is just absolute money. But then you got Aaron Jones, high workload against a terrible Raiders defense. So I'm interested where you're going to go with this one, Matt.
It's really hard because you've got Terry on Thursday. So if you don't take Terry now and then you wait till Monday for Jones, that's just a lot of time in between. But I want to say Aaron Jones, I think he's back to 100% and he's going to run all over the Raiders. It's just McLaurin is probably going to have a good day. So I could see either side. I don't want to give you a non-answer. So I would say Aaron Jones, but I would not be upset with Terry McLaurin. I think he has a fine game. Terry's been very consistent all season. Not a lot of high ceiling numbers, but definitely serviceable for maybe a wide receiver 2 or a flex player. And if you're flexing one of these guys, I mean, you could take the upside with Jones. I think that Aaron Jones definitely could have a huge game against the Raiders. So I'm going to lean Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I will as well. But I will say if you could find a way to get them both into your lineup, I would do everything you can. I know you probably got 2 better running backs or 2 better receivers on paper, but the matchups for both these guys are just phenomenal. He did say, he follows up real quick, Aaron Jones just got in a limited practice today. I think Terry will do good to get me a win this week. 100%. Just remember, Jones is a veteran. He's going to get limited work, especially still coming off the injury. He had the mini bye last week because he played Thursday, so he's had even more time to recover. I'm not worried about Jones in terms of that. But like I said, if you can find a way to get both these guys in your lineup, I would. You're not going to make the wrong choice between the two of them, I don't think. I think you're going to get good returns from both of these guys, so it's a good problem to have. MGJMHK. I'm just going to go with that. Half PPR, 6-point passing touchdown league. Would you all rather do Hurts and Ford for Burrow and Swift, or Cousins plus JT? I would rather just keep Hurts and Ford in a 6-point league, personally.
Yeah, you can't trust Burrow right now. Unfortunately, I have him, and it's been a grind to say the least. Swift has been fantastic, but he has a horrible injury history. You never know. Ford has just been pretty serviceable. I think he's not too far away from Swift that you're like, wow, this is like, I can't even look at these two against each other, So I think that the Hurts Ford, because we don't know what JT is going to do either. He could end up going to the wrong team potentially as well from a fantasy perspective. I will give Cousins his due. He's actually got a better fantasy numbers than Hurts so far this year, but I don't know if that's going to pan out to the end of the season. So I think you're fine with Hurts and Ford. I am a trade guy, but I think you have the better option here. And you got to think, yes, the 6-point passing touchdown is nice because Burrow probably is the best of all three of these choices, but you just haven't seen it yet. And
he's not right now. And this is going to continue. Like he's got to recover still. He's not fully healthy. That's just the bottom line.
They did come out today and said that he's feeling the best he's ever felt, and he doesn't need to be any type of limited at practice. So maybe this is the first week we get to see him actually be who he was before. Probably no T. Higgins. Hopefully it's a Jamar Chase day because I have Jamar Chase, and it's just an absolute feeding of against the Cardinals. But this might be the first week we get to see it.
It's true. I'll put it to you this way. I've got him outside my top 15 this week because I just don't trust it. He's had less than 10 fantasy points 3 times, I think, at least in 4-point. And in 6-point, he's not doing much more. So, you've got to bench him until you know that he's anywhere even close to 100%. And right now, he looks at less than 50%, to be honest. So, but we both agree. Keep Hurts and Ford. That's the best duo there, in our opinion, especially for the quarterback, upgrade over top of everybody else that you got. Alan, our buddy, questions for teams with RB troubles with both starters on a bye. Who's a better fit, Gibson or CEH? Oh, man.
Both playing against very bad defenses this week.
Horrible defenses.
Kansas City has done everything they could possibly do to get Edwards-Helaire involved, and he's just still not doing anything. I'm surprised he has as much of a role as he does right now in Kansas City, and they're not using McKinnon as much. I lean Gibson against the Bears. I think if Fields scores a lot of points, which is what the Bears do, they can't stop anybody, so they have to score a bunch. They might dump the ball off to Gibson quite a bit because he's really the pass-catching back. And Brian Robinson, who I have to give credit to, has been pretty decent this year. He's going to be the downhill runner. So, yeah, I like Gibson more.
Nothing worse than telling everybody to fade him last week against Philly, and then he has a horrible game until he dives into the end zone towards the end of the third quarter and saves his fantasy performance. So,
well, I don't think anybody would have disagreed. I mean, Philly's run defense is probably either number one or in the top 3.
You would be surprised how many people disagree.
But I will say, of all the teams that play Philly, Washington seems to be the one that puts the best performance up against them. They always seem to give Philly fits. They were the ones that beat them last year, the first loss for Philly. So, that was in Philly, right?
It was, yeah.
Oh, you got to play in Washington still now.
Jeez. That'll be fun. Hey, we could go 6-0. I think we can beat the Rams, and then we play the Jets. If we can go 6-0, and then we got that gauntlet in the middle of the season, we could take a couple of losses and be okay. But Back to your question, Alan. I agree. Gibson over CEH. I just think Gibson's the better football player when I'm looking at the two of them. And when I'm betting on a chance of, because you're just betting on which one of these guys might fall into the end zone, Gibson's got a better shot this week against a terrible Bears defense than CEH does against Minnesota. So give me that. Look at that. Right on cue. Andrew, would you trade Ramondre Stevenson for Raheem Mostert? Now, I will preface this. I have Stevenson as a fade this week. I've got him very low in my ranks just because of the New Orleans defense. But here's why you should keep him over Mostert. Mostert went from in the 70s and 60s of snaps percentage down to, I think it was 42 or something crazy like that last week. Jeff Wilson's going to be back soon. Achane is the dude. Mostert is 31. It's just going to keep going downhill for him. Stevenson's matchups after this week are fan-freaking-tastic. And he's still getting 15 carries a game, 70% snap share. He's just been inefficient because the defenses he's playing against are really good against the run. And his offense has been absolutely dreadful. They can right that ship with the upcoming schedule. I would keep Stevenson, but I'll let you go, Matt, as well, just to give
yeah. So I would probably keep Stevenson too, but I'm not happy about either guy. New England is kind of in a free for all right now, and I think it affects everybody on that team. So Stevenson just gives you the opportunity to potentially have more volume. Mostert gives you the opportunity to have more boom, but Mostert comes with a lot of baggage. He's older. He's more injury prone than Stevenson certainly. He's got a lot of people that he has to fight for carries. So I would keep Stevenson, but I mean, either guy, unfortunately, is probably not going to be a huge producer in the foreseeable future.
I think you'll at least get good RB2 production from Stevenson on a weekly basis after this week, next to Mostert, who might just fall off the face of the earth. Remember, guys, last year, CEH, a guy we just talked about, between him and Gibson, he was the RB3 over 4 weeks just because he kept scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. First 3 weeks, they change perspectives on everybody. And by the end of the year, nobody had CEH, obviously, because of the injury. But by the end of the year, Mostert's going to be a bench guy, most likely. So, Israel asks, Khalil Herbert or Gibbs? Give me Gibbs this week. Now, I'll preface this because I know how much you're mad at Gibbs right now. So is the whole freaking internet. Totally understand. Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't practiced in 2 days with an abdomen injury. He might not practice again tomorrow, and if he plays, he's going to be limited. That's Gibbs' bread and butter. They're going to need to throw underneath, and they're going to need to throw short passes. He's already had a game with 9 targets this year. If they flex him out wide as a wide receiver, which they did do a couple of times while Montgomery was on the field last week, Gibbs is going to get enough targets to finish as a back-end RB2 at the very least. Herbert's had one good game all year. Washington's run defense is no joke. He might not have a good game tonight. I would go Gibbs personally, but I'll let you fight for it, Matt, because you've had Gibbs and you felt the burns. So
I just think that they don't use him as we expected. I think they really want to pound it with David Montgomery and use play action. And if you look at Gibbs, he is a better runner. I mean, yards per carry, if you just watch, I mean, he's just a better runner in my opinion. But I was very surprised with Khalil Herbert last week. Yes, it was the Broncos, and I don't disagree with anything anybody was about to say about the Broncos. But he had good yards per carry. He ran quite a bit. The only thing he didn't have was receiving, which usually he does. So I think it's going to be another decent game for Herbert. Roshan Johnson kind of fell down a little bit. I think he's still going to be involved. But Khalil Herbert took and said, take a back seat. I'm still the starter in this rotation. So I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert probably this is probably my last week. If he doesn't do well, especially, but things get a little tougher for Herbert, and time will only give Roshan more opportunity. So, and I'm hoping, Gibbs will eventually be something more. I thought it would have been when Montgomery got injured, but again, they're just not using him. I mean, I don't think they're using him correctly. Maybe because I'm not an NFL GM, but if I had a guy like Gibbs, I would want him to be much more involved than what he is. But that's just me.
I'll add 2 things. One, the matchup for Gibbs is against Carolina. Just for everyone that's aware, they're bottom 5 against the run this year. A matchup that, say you're not playing Gibbs this week, you go Herbert because of the more guaranteed work. Target that matchup every single week. If you're playing against Carolina, see what running back plays them. See if you got them. Try to find a way to put them in because they are just getting eaten alive on the ground. But if you haven't listened already, I would highly suggest seeking out. So Austin Eckler does a podcast with a couple of guys talking about fantasy football, and he gave his perspective on why Gibbs maybe isn't in the role that people want him to be yet. And he just breaks it down in a phenomenal way, talking about the things that he needs to improve on, why he's still not out there on the field over a guy like Montgomery. And it gives you good perspective. But he gave people hope. Gibbs is just going to keep continuing to increase his role little by little. It's not going to keep Monty off the field all the time, but he's going to find a way to get his touches still. So there's hope for Gibbs. I know there's burns with Gibbs, but there's a lot of hope. Alan says ETN versus Pierce is RB1 this week. This is an easy one for me. This is ETN all the way.
ETN's been phenomenal.
Buffalo's run defense. He had a week last week, but Atlanta just loves to chew the clock, and they were getting eaten through the air by Trevor Lawrence. He just thrives in London in the passing game. He's done great every time he's gone to London when he's throwing the ball. But the Bills defense is very, very good. Run defense, they're middle of the pack for fantasy. You can target them and still play your guys and have some confidence. So I'm not worried about ETN. Pierce is a good RB2. ETN's got a top 12 ceiling. I don't think Pierce has that. Let's go to Chaka. Would you trade Javonte plus Sutton for Terry McLaurin full PPR? It really depends on your RB room, but if you've got at least 2 startable guys, I think this is a good upgrade for you. What do you think? In a full PPR?
Sutton's been really good. I mean, if you probably look at the numbers, he's probably better than Terry right now. So
not last week.
Yeah, I mean, there is the inconsistency of Denver. So, I mean, Terry is the guy in Washington. So, well, yeah, if you have the running back space, I mean, obviously Javonte just got hurt, and he might play, but he might not. So there's that. But Jaleel McLaughlin has also looked really well. He might steal some stuff away from Javonte if he gets the opportunity. So I would do it if I had enough running backs.
Yeah, I think I would too. And just food for thought, Denver has one of the toughest remaining schedules in terms of fantasy defenses against pass catchers. So their wide receivers and tight ends, they've got the toughest slate moving forward through the rest of the final 13 games of the season. This might be a good time to get out on some of these guys. Although I would keep Judy if you have him, only for the sole fact that he's getting a lot of trade talk rumors. He could go to Carolina. He could go to New England. There's rumors that he could go to Cleveland to be the number 2 there. With how bad this team is, I could see them trading him, especially with a new regime led by Sean Payton. He doesn't seem like he's happy with anybody in Denver right now. He would probably sell the entire team for draft picks at this point if he could. So don't be surprised if he moves, and then he might get a bump up in fantasy usage. So I would take that if possible. We got Trevor. Expert is a stretch. Love you, buddy. I think I put that in the description. That's just the title they give us. It's not my fault that that's the title they give us at Fantasy Pros. While we wait for some more questions to roll in, we will put my rankings up here for this week. I did not mean to go to running backs yet. Matt, we've got my top 12 is Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. 4 is Jalen Hurts. 5, Anthony Richardson. 6, Tua. 7, Justin Fields. 8, Kirk Cousins. 9, Jordan Love. 10, C.J. Stroud. 11, Trevor Lawrence. 12, Matt Stafford. And then 3 streamers I think you can use this week are Sam Howell against Chicago. Great matchup. Daniel Jones versus Miami. Defense is terrible. And Jared Goff versus Carolina. Carolina's a good defense, but I think he'll throw enough to have a decent performance. Anybody on that list you want to talk about a little bit more?
Yeah, let's make a bet right now that Joe Burrow definitely has more fantasy points than Zach Wilson. Let's do it right now.
What bet do you want to make?
Let's see. What would hurt you?
We should do something for the show, for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, I can buy a Dallas Cowboys hat.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. Nope. I'm not putting my trust in Zach Wilson for that. No. No. Absolutely not.
See, it doesn't hurt you to wear a Bills hat, so
No, I have some.
this is hard.
I
Well,
gotta wear him to support Dad.
well, we'll come up with something, but
Yeah,
there's
I'll
no
take the
way.
bet. I
There's
think
no-
Zach Wilson has a better fantasy week than Joe Burrow this week.
I can't even
That's
make
fine.
a comment to you. I can't.
Hey, listen, dude, I get it. Okay, you think I want to put this here like this?
Listen, Brees Hall is going to run all over Denver, but Zach Wilson is not going to be the one to do it.
Alan, shut up. We know you're a closet Eagles fan, so I don't want you in here right now. Before we go a little bit deeper into that, Trevor asks, when does Najee begin to exist? My simple answer for you is never. I'm sorry. I want zero to do with Najee Harris for the rest of the season. That offense is broken. And until they fire Matt Canada, you can't trust anything to go right for that offense. It's just been proven time and time and time again. Am I right or am I wrong there?
There was a better offensive coordinator named Matt, and his name was Matt Patricia. And he is better than Matt Canada.
My defensive assistant?
So yeah, it's really that. It's the product of their system. It's a product of inconsistency at all levels, offensive line, especially for Pittsburgh. That's another reason why he isn't successful. And if you just kind of watch Najee, he's not a very good runner either. He hasn't been all his NFL career. So I don't know. Maybe he just was never really meant for the NFL, or maybe it's just the Steelers. I'd love to see him on a different team, but that'll never happen.
I think you put him behind a even halfway decent offensive line, he produces. But the problem is he is the running back who is met at the line of scrimmage more than anybody in the NFL. That was a stat that was put out today on Twitter. It's making the rounds as a defense for him. But the problem is when he breaks tackles, he's not gaining yardage either. So we don't know if he's actually a good running back or not when it comes to that. RGQ, he's got a tight end question. Waller going up against Miami this week. Hunter Henry versus New Orleans, or Luke Musgrave against Las Vegas. Henry's tough this week. New Orleans is such a good defense against all positions right now, and I don't think I want to start him. And then Musgrave.
He's hurt.
He cleared the concussion protocol today. He's a full participant, so he's good to go.
At this point, I would take Musgrave. That's how bad Waller is, and that's how bad Hunter Henry is going to face the Saints D.
I'm still taking Waller. You got to just hope that this Miami matchup, he's able to do something. The big thing for Waller this week is the pass rush for Miami is hurt right now. Jordan Phillips is limited in practice. We don't know if he's going to play. They're banged up a little bit defensively in terms of the linebacker core, the D line. Hope that they miss because that's going to help Daniel Jones have more than a half a second to throw the ball. And then another report came out today from Daniel Jones himself saying that he needs to throw Waller the ball more often, get the ball in the hands of his best player. I think the squeaky wheel treatment is about to happen. You just got to keep throwing Waller out there in these plus matchups. This is one that I don't think you want to avoid when you've got someone like Henry in a really, really bad matchup, and then Musgrave, getting back Christian Watson this week, Aaron Jones fully healthy. Romeo Doubs has 25 targets over the past 2 weeks. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in Green Bay, and when you've got someone like Waller, I think I would go Waller. Trevor also agrees. He says Waller versus the bench. Alan, do you still have faith in Drake London, or are we waiting for Heineke to take over the QB role? I'll give it to you straight. I don't want any pass catcher in Atlanta. I don't care who it is. I want none of them. The only Atlanta Falcons player that is fantasy relevant is Bijan, and then you stick Algier on a bench to keep as a handcuff. Those first 2 weeks were an anomaly for him. He's not going to get 15 touches every week with Bijan. Bijan's taken over completely. I'm not playing Drake London pretty much any week. How do you feel about London? Because I'm so far off of them that I think I put the hate a little too far, but I just can't play these guys.
He's just too inconsistent. I mean, he does have He's very touchdown dependent. I am very hopeful that Heineke plays because I think that would change things tremendously. But right now with Desmond Ridder, who I said in the beginning of the offseason, continue on, he is probably the worst quarterback other than Zach Wilson in the NFL.
That's an apology I need to make to you. You are right. I figured that, Josh Dobbs and some of these other middling low-level quarterbacks were going to be worse than Ridder. Not true. Ridder is the absolute worst.
He's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
There are backup quarterbacks in the league for sure that should be starting over him by a country mile. And one of them's on his own team.
Well, and the thing is if you go back to the college days, Cincinnati got where they got not because of Ridder predominantly. Their defense was unstoppable, and they played, nobody until the playoffs. So, there's some of that too. But yeah, Ridder is garbage, absolute garbage. I actually will give more credit to some of the other guys that are in the lower tiers so far this year that I didn't really love. Sam Howell, he's actually done pretty well, much better than I expected.
He needs the apology from you. You crapped on Howell a lot this offseason for sure.
I know Bryce Young hasn't done well so far, especially from a fantasy perspective, but he's a rookie. And obviously CJ Stroud. I liked Stroud anyway, so super, super impressed with that. But, Desmond Ridder, terrible. Garbage.
Yeah, for sure. I love all the Bijan love that's happening in the comments now that we just talked about the Falcons. Bijan has at least one nasty play per game. So glad I drafted him. More Henny dumps for Bijan.
And that's exactly what will happen.
That's as far as he can throw, so he's game. Trevor also says Stroud Rookie of the Year. That's 100% true so far. The dude is a beast.
Yeah. I can't think of anybody else besides Bijan, maybe.
Yeah, but I don't think Bijan's doing. I mean, Bijan's been great. Don't get me wrong, but he's not putting up numbers that are like he's not winning his team.
They're
games.
Not sexy. They're not sexy numbers.
And he's not winning games for the Falcons. CJ Stroud is winning games for the Texans for sure with his play. So he deserves that honor right now. Real quick, some guys on here that I wanted to talk to you about. The Thursday night guys. I think you can start both. Fields, I got him at 7. Howell, I've got him right outside the top 12 at 13. Would you start both of these guys pretty easily if you had to make that choice, Matt?
Yeah, I would. I'm going to ride with Burrow this week. I had Sam Howell, but I'm going to ride with Burrow one last time. I hope this is the desperation game they need against the Cardinals. And Cardinals, they have a good run defense, but you can beat them in the pass. So I'm hoping that that's what happens. But I like Sam Howell a lot. You couldn't get a better matchup. I mean, Chicago is probably the worst defense in the NFL. There's not really much else you can say. Maybe Denver tries to beat them for that title. But Sam Howell's been very efficient. When he faces a strong defense, he saw that in Buffalo. I mean, he saw that in Philly and did pretty decent. But, when he gets up to some strength, he struggles. But against teams like this, he usually will feast. So I expect a big day from him. I do.
Would you start him over most of the other streamers this week that got picked up off waivers like Love and Stroud or even like Daniel Jones and Dobbs and stuff like that? Or are there other guys that would still play over top of Howell?
Yeah, over Daniel Jones. Absolute garbage.
Well, yeah.
I refuse. And listen, Miami, they give up some points. Their defense is better than what people are saying right now because of what Buffalo did to them last week. And that was just a product of Josh Allen refused to punt the ball. They were not going to punt. Buffalo was going to get the 10 yards. And by the way, not to toot the Bills' horn here, but Josh Allen's figured out that he just has to win the battle of 10 yards to win the war that is the game. And folks, it's not going to be pretty. Buffalo is going to roll people. Now that they've figured that out offensively, he doesn't need to take the deep shots. He just needs to get 10 yards. And it's going to be I'm expecting a very nice season for the Bills now that I was waiting for it after a couple of games. I wanted to make sure, but now I'm pretty convinced that they've changed that philosophy for him. So, but not to go on a tangent.
Would you?
Good.
Go ahead, bud. Go ahead.
I like Sam Howell over Stafford. I'm surprised he's where he is.
That was going to be my next question. Philadelphia ranks 29th against quarterbacks for fantasy right now. We're just letting up yards through the air. Teams are throwing all over us. We lose Maddox in the slot, and the defense coordinator is just moving those corners all over the place to where they look confused half the time. That's just the truth. And it really showed against Washington.
I actually think the Rams-Eagles game is going to be very ugly. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game at all.
Really?
It just has the product of an ugly game. So I'm not super high on Stafford. I definitely would take Sam Howell over him. I would probably take Sam Howell over Trevor Lawrence right now, playing against Buffalo. It could be a barn burner. I mean, Buffalo could let him cook, but I just love the matchup.
You're taking Burrow over all these guys?
I am. This is it.
Oh,
this is desperation time. And it's going to be touchdowns up the wall.
We'll have your Viking funeral next week when he scores 5 points, okay?
Well, that'll be probably the end of my fantasy season too. So we will mourn.
Well, you can focus on this.
Well, listen. So I'm in a Survivor League right now for DraftKings. A lot of money. And I have to pick somebody each week to win, and I can only pick them once a year. So I was going to pick the Bengals against the Cardinals, and Scott convinced me to take the Lions over the Panthers instead. And I'm going to save the Bengals for later on in the year when hopefully Joe Burrow figures it out. But
no, you know what you need to do? You need to go balls to the wall, pick the Jets this week. Pick the Jets over top.
I don't want to lose because of the Jets.
The Broncos.
We're into this. I think there was 50,000 people in it. There's only 9,000 now. We're getting down to the nitty gritty now. So I really don't want to lose because of the Jets. Okay.
Trevor's picking on you, fleecing these trades ends up using dull shears.
Yeah, Burrow. I hope he figures it out this week. And it just seems like, if they don't do it, because next week they play Seattle, then they have a bye week. So they could be 3-3 if they play their cards right, and everything can be a wash. And that's always the NFC or the AFC North. The teams lose weird games, and it's always close every year. So they'd be fine at 3-3, but they got to do it. And Arizona's the first one, and obviously I do like Seattle more than Arizona. So this is the easier game for them to win. But do they do that? I don't know. I really don't.
He says he hopes that you don't figure it out until week 12.
If he doesn't figure it out next week, it ain't going to make a difference for our league because I'll be burnt to crispy toast.
Ellen asks Roshan tonight or Jalen Warren against who's Pittsburgh play again? Oh my goodness, I don't even have him up there because Kenny Pickett's so bad.
Vegas.
What's that?
Vegas.
Pittsburgh doesn't play Vegas. Vegas is the Monday night game against the Packers.
What am I thinking? They played the Ravens.
Yes, Baltimore. Ugh. Probably Roshan, right?
Different flex.
Go to the waivers. I
don't like either guy. I think Roshan. He's not there.
He should get 6 or 7 touches. He might fall into the end zone. I mean, Trevor says empty flex. Oh, man. I would go Roshan. If you put a gun to Matt's head, would you go Roshan? This is it. This is the only two.
Yeah, I would. Because I think the Ravens are just too punishing, man. That's going to be an ugly game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm assuming Pickett is going to try to play. He practiced
again today, so he's gonna suit up with that horrible knee.
When Allen Robinson is competing for most receptions on your team, you're bad offensively.
Not even him, Calvin Austin, and he's got no Freiermuth for the next 3 weeks. Still no Deontay. Nope, no thank you. Mo Diesel start 2. Wan'Dale Robinson, the new waiver hotness this week. Gibson. Josh Downs, Josh Reynolds, half PPR. Now, I think Reynolds is probably the easy one right now, especially if Amon-Ra is hurt.
I love me some Josh Reynolds.
The problem with Reynolds is just he could give you literally nothing. He's done that. He's gone off and had 3 touchdown games, and then the next week catches 1 pass for 2 yards. That happened last year. It's already happened this year. But I think you got to roll with it, especially if Amon-Ra is hurt. He and Khalif Raymond and Jamison Williams, who is available to play this week, if you didn't know, his suspension got cut by a week, so he's playing this week. I still think Josh Reynolds is going to be the one who gets the most snaps. And then number 2, Matt, who you think? I do like Wandale this week. The matchup's good. He's getting a lot of targets.
Right, and he's very consistent. That's why I think he's a good choice, because Gibson is not. Josh Downs is not. Both guys are hovering around 2 to 3 fantasy points a game, and Wandale is consistently getting like 6 to 8. So I would take Wandale, and then Josh Reynolds is your boom chance. He could put up 30 points, honestly.
Now he adds Gibson plays Chicago, which you're right. I just want to pull something up real quick, so I'm going to look it up real fast. The problem with Gibson is usage, and like we had the choice earlier of Gibson, and I can't remember who the other player was now off the top of my head, but every single week, here's the snap share for Gibson every week, and he's never finished higher than the RB 30. 3 of his games have been positive matchups: 35% snap share, 48% snap share. 61 2 weeks ago against Buffalo, 38 against Philadelphia last week, and that's it. He's not getting enough usage. He's only gone over 3 carries once, and he's only gone over 3 targets once. So he's just not getting enough work. Like the matchup is awesome, and he might have, fall into the end zone game, catch a couple passes for 30, 40 yards, and you'll be a little bit happy. But with the other guys that you got, I think you go Reynolds. I think you go Wandale, and you hope for the bigger, better performances with those guys than getting a potential 0 or 1 or 2 in your flex spot or your starting spot. Guys, I see more questions, and I'll get to them, so just be patient with me. Trevor says, assuming Kupp and JT both play this week, do you start them? The easy one for me is Kupp. Yes, if he's on the field, you got to play him. Just temper expectations. Don't expect a top 12 week 1 back from a hamstring. With the way the offense is moving now, with the involvement of Puka and Tutu, like Kupp's going to get his. He could find the end zone and finish inside the top 12. Just don't expect it, because then you're going to let yourself down. Plan around it. If you're playing Kupp, make sure you got a couple guys in there that are going to get you at least 10 points this week, in case he's on a limited snap share and only catches a couple passes. But after this week, it's all systems go. What's your thoughts on JT, Matt? He says he's good, basically. He's going to play out the year, and he's got no issues.
This is auditioning for the next team. Absolutely play him. He's gonna score 100 points. Like, he is projecting for where he wants to go next, the money he needs to get. He needs to show the skill level to earn that money. And also, you can just put these guys in your flex, and they're probably going to be better than any other flex you could use. So, I would absolutely – I'd love to have both these guys. I mean, I think they're both going to do phenomenal.
So, for JT, the only thing is Titans' run defense is really, really good. And it's funny I just say that because he just threw in there against Titans' run defense. Titans' run defense is great, especially against fantasy running backs so far this year. They have not played a JT. I'll put it to you that way.
Right.
I think you can, if you treat him like an RB2, a top 24 option, I think that's what you're going to expect to get out of him, and he can finish inside the top 24 pretty easily. Just got to cross your fingers, man. Like, if hopefully the team isn't like, well, we got you back, but we also got Zach Moss, so we're going to split the reps between both of you because Moss has done well, or they're going to do what's best for the team and use a talent like JT to his full potential. That's the hope. This weekend has a lot of storylines to follow, and I'm very excited to follow them. Be shady. Locked in Washington, -6 over 44.5. I pulled last 5 games from both teams, and in comparison, added up points. The average is closer to 45. 2 weeks ago, both teams scored lower, but they played the Chiefs and Bills. I think this game is going to be over that 44.5. What do you think, Matt? This is all your realm, so I want you to make sure you answer it.
Boy, Thursday night overs are just brutal. But I think this might be the anomaly we get where we actually finally get an over on a Thursday night. just both teams. I mean, Chicago's off; their defense is so bad. You know, Justin Fields is going to do everything he can to score as much as possible. I could totally see a 28-21 game, which puts you at 49. I don't know if I like -6 for Washington. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that the Bears win this game. I know that's probably not the trend. I mean, I think the public's actually on the Bears right now, which I don't always
I picked
love.
the Bears to win tonight. I think they pull off the upset. Eberflus is. There's rumors that if this game is a wash, they lose, Eberflus is done. He's got to let Justin Fields do what he does best to try and win this game. And if he doesn't, he's going to lose his job. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah. I think I like the Bears here, so I actually did the Bears +6. I'm fine with -6 though for Washington because I think if Washington does win, it's probably going to be by a touchdown. Maybe like it's tied.
I don't see this being a field goal separated game by the end of it. Someone's winning by a decent margin here.
But I'm digging the over. And if anybody watches the show, they know I'm an under better. But I like the over here. It's got to happen at some point in the year on primetime Thursday night games. I think this is the one we get. So hopefully it's not a trap for us. But
he adds in, watch out for Moore and Dotson tonight. I think they both have a good game. Dotson especially could. I think this is a game where he can break out. DJ Moore has just been great. He's been great the past couple of weeks.
The receiving yards line for DJ Moore, I think, is still at 49.5, and I would take the over in that all day.
Smash that all day. Smash that all day. That's just disrespectful at this point, don't you think? Like that.
Yeah, the top tier guys usually hover around 65, 70, so it's definitely lower than it may have climbed since then, but last I checked this morning, it was 50.
Well, I got the notification on the Sleeper app that said it was a bonus. If you put in $20, they match it for 20, and the one that they advertised was that line of 40. I think it was 40, 42 or 43 or something like that receiving yards. If I had an extra $20 to throw on it, I would do it. Like that's easy money. It feels like. Real quick, let's see. Well, I'll get to you real quick in a second here. Super C&B. Trevor says he's playing Cup, but not JT. He hasn't worked with Anthony Richardson yet. Run D is good, and he wasn't great last year anyways. That's very true. He was not good last year. I can personally manage if he does look good without him. So those are where I'm going. I'll be happy with the bench warmer of the week again. Yeah, he consistently gets a bench warmer of the week in our league pretty much every week. But I get that. Like JT, you're right. He just wasn't good last year, but I think at full health, we're going to see what he can really do. And this is essentially a contract year for him now. You know, he's playing for that big payday. So those are the guys you want to bet on, AKA, Josh Jacobs last year. Super C&B traded Cortland Sutton and Gabe Davis for Terry McLaurin in a full PPR. What do you think? He's already got CeeDee Lambs, AJ Brown, and DK Metcalf. I mean, I don't hate it. I think the big thing with Gabe Davis, Matt, is he seems like he's gotten a lot of touchdowns on a little target share, and that does not seem sustainable. And then Sutton, like we've talked about, has that really, really gross schedule coming up, and it's going to be rough sledding.
The fact that McLaurin is your wide receiver 4 is just insane. I mean, kudos to you. Your running backs must be like, I don't know, Samaje Perine and a bag of chips. But I like the trade. Gabe Davis is unfortunately too inconsistent. He's been more consistent this year, though, so far. I will give him that. But very touchdown dependent.
He seems to really like McLaurin more than Dotson. He seems to scheme the offense more towards McLaurin than he does Dotson, which is the opposite of what we all thought moving into this year after what Dotson did last year.
Right. And Sutton, I still like Sutton, but I can totally see the trade for McLaurin.
Oh, he's killing it. Look at this. He says he used that roster spot to get Charbonnet off waivers. Great. And then his RBs right now are Miles Sanders, Monty, and Brees.
Oh, Brees is gonna be insane in the next few weeks. He is.
Oh, the redemption tour starts Sunday, Matt. Sunday. It's gonna be a demonstrative game for him. Dominic, 12-team PPR. His RBs are Kyron, Monty, Kamara, and Jones. Thinking of starting first three. Do we agree? Kamara and Jones, a toss-up. Who out of the three do you have rest of season if he was to try and sell one for the future? Kyren and Monty are your definite keeps. Like, you got to keep those guys. I'm assuming Jones is Aaron Jones. That's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that is the most prominent running back. And Super CMB, not a problem. We appreciate you on the show. Like and subscribe. We would appreciate it. I haven't said that once today, so I wanted to throw that in there. Between Aaron Jones and Kamara, I'm still taking Jones. Matt, what do you think?
I am actually going to go the other way, Ryan. I would take Kyren Kamara and Aaron Jones. I think that Kamara will end up being more of what he was in terms of a fantasy perspective down the road. I think that Aaron Jones is going to be obviously better after the injury. Kyren Williams is a top 5 running back at this point. It's insane. Monty is the one for me that I'm going to leave out, and it's not because I don't think he's bad. I just think that eventually Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take over more and more. Monty has got some pretty bad injury history, too. This guy gets banged up, and he's out for a couple of weeks all the time. I know Jones is out right now, so I can't really say that too much, but it just seems like Monty gives it. He goes 150%, and then it's like the engine just blows out. So I like Gibbs to take over more as the season goes on, too.
Man, dude, I don't know. We saw the formula last year. Jamal Williams, terrible yards per carry, 17 touchdowns. It doesn't matter in Detroit. I think you just can't sell him, man. You can't sell him for.
Well, he's got 4 bags. I think you could get the most trade value from Monty potentially right now, besides Kyren.
I was going to say, I think Kyren's probably got more value in redraft leagues.
Yeah. But if you need another, you only need 3 of them. I mean, I don't know. I'd go Monty.
Trevor adds real quick about Kamara. He had 13 targets in his first game. I want to just preface that. He had 13 targets for 33 yards receiving, which is damn near impossible to do. And I'm not saying Kamara's not going to get targets. The reason that happened is because Derek Carr's arm is a wet noodle, and he could only throw 2 yards in front of him. That's not a joke. He should have not played that. Matt and I had this discussion. He should have never played in that game. That was a horrible, horrible choice. And he's probably going to go back out there again this week with an AC joint sprain. And it's just a horrible decision. But I'm not going to deny that Kamara's not going to get targets. Like, he's going to get targets. If you're expecting 14 a week, you're crazy. But he's going to get them. We got some more questions rolling in. I don't think we're going to get to my rankings map, so I'm just going to kind of slide these over as we talk so people can hopefully see them on the screen. Tyler Kelly, sorry. Waddle, Pittman, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, which 3 does he start this week? I'll go right to my receiver rankings, and I'll give you who I've got in line there. I've actually got Pittman highest. That matchup against Tennessee is great. He's been getting tons of targets. 9 every this year except for 1. What's that?
Yeah, you got Waddle at 8.
I do have Waddle. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you're right. I got Waddle at 8. Waddle, Pittman, and then between Devonta Smith and DJ Moore, I have Devonta Smith higher. Here's the thing, though. Because you've got the guaranteed target share with Pittman and Waddle should feast this week, I would probably, in your situation, go DJ Moore. Devonta Smith's ranked higher because his booms are bigger than most wide receivers' boom games. DJ Moore, I think you're going to get a more consistent output this week against Washington. But what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I would go Waddle. Man, Devontae Smith, I'm fine with not having him in there because it's either A.J. Brown or it's Devontae Smith. It's never both. A.J. Brown gets 30 points. Devonta Smith gets 3, vice versa. So I'm totally fine with leaving Devontae Smith out. This is a great week for Pittman, for sure. He's been good too, and this is a great week for DJ. And it's a great week for Waddle. I mean, all 3 of these guys have good matchups. So And like I said, I just feel like this Philly game against the Rams is going to be ugly. It's going to be very ugly.
Yeah, and looking at this, there's a chance that I'm going to bump Smith down a tiny bit, depending on practice reports coming out and stuff like that. Like Christian Watson, if he's a full go, he's going to probably bump up a spot or two. As the wide receiver one against a really bad Las Vegas defense. Things like that. I'll be moving people around. Debo is a big question mark. He was a decoy last week, and we don't know what his status is going to be for this Sunday night game against Dallas. So the matchup's already bad, and we don't know what he's going to do. But let's go to Nino. Start Dobbs or Gibbs at flex this week. I know I just fought for Gibbs, but I'm going to play Dobbs. Las Vegas defense is horrible against the pass. He's got 25 targets in 2 weeks. He's his favorite target right now. He's Love's favorite target. He's got 3 touchdowns in 4 games. He's the wide receiver 17. I'm not sitting Dobbs unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, I probably have to go Dobbs. It's unbelievable I'm saying that right now. But I can understand.
Man. He's been great.
I can understand Gibbs for sure, though.
And then he added a follow-up real quick. He also traded Monty for Breece Hall and Gibbs for the long run. Was that a good or bad trade? Good trade. Listen, I love Monty. Breece Hall, like we said, the redemption tour is coming. The problem with it is there's going to be a roadblock next week because the Jets play Philadelphia. So there might be a bad game there for Breece next week after this good one against the Broncos. But after that, the whole schedule opens up for the Jets in general. Like this 6-game stretch for the Jets was going to be tough for them to win half of their games with Aaron Rodgers under center. And they found a way to stay competitive with the Chiefs, for God's sakes, with Zach Wilson. So it's going to open up. Things are going to get better for Breece, for Garrett Wilson, the whole nine. But being able to get not just Breece, but Gibbs as well, now you've got 2 startable assets. Gibbs is a flex every week. So it's going to work out in your favor, I think. You're going to miss the 30-point Monty game here and there. I'm not going to lie to you, but you got a very, very good return for him. Probably one of the better returns I've seen in a Monty trade this week after his blow up. I'll let you go after that, though, Matt.
I think in terms of the long run, this is a very lopsided trade for you, so congrats. Breece Hall is going to be incredibly good. I think Gibbs is only going to continue to hopefully get more and more, so this is a great trade for the future.
He also says, appreciate that, really betting on Breece as well. Not a problem, man. I really hope that works out for you. I know the Breece one will at least pay some dividends off. And like I said, the Gibbs days are coming. Like he may never be the all elite one for that offense like everybody wanted. But that offense is good enough to sustain 2 good fantasy running backs. They did it the last few years. They're going to do it again. Just going to have some inconsistencies along the way, Real quick at tight end, Matt. I just wanted to kind of run through this because there's some matchups, that everyone, is going to be kind of trying to decide between. Top 4 is pretty simple. Kelsey, Hawkinson, Laporta, Mark Andrews. Moving on to 5, you got Darren Waller. I know you're going to disagree with that, but I can't rank him super low with the Miami matchup. It's just too juicy. If he has the massive game, it's going to have to be this week. Evan Engram, Evan Engram at Buffalo. He's been the most consistent fantasy tight end, even over Travis Kelce through 4 weeks, which is absolutely friggin' bonkers. Kittle at Baltimore, horrible matchup. He can obviously overcome it, but he's been bad except for 1 game so far this year. So not great for him. Ertz versus Cincinnati is amazing. He's got 9 targets in all but 1 game this year. And you bailed on him way too early. You idiot. Dallas Goedert hopefully has a bounce back week this week. The Rams are a really good matchup for fantasy tight ends. He's just been horrible through 4 games. I think he's like the tight end 36 or something like that. Something crazy overall. Ferguson at 10 going up against San Francisco. I put Dalton Kincaid in my top 12 this week. Dawson Knox is banged up again. And I think this is the matchup where he can exploit Jacksonville a little bit. What do you think about that?
Oh, I love it. Buffalo's really starting to get him more involved each game. He's getting more comfortable in the offense. And with no Dawson Knox, it's going to be Kincaid over the middle all game. So I love that.
Tyler Higbee at 12 against Philly. Philly is the second best matchup for tight ends, but I just don't. I would have him higher if Kupp wasn't coming back. I just don't know what targets are going to go his way with how many are there. There's so many targets there now that Matt Stafford has, and we're not used to that. So I got him at 12. Just know that he's got a higher ceiling because of the matchup. And then some streamers. Cole Kmet at Washington. He had the 2 touchdowns last week. Hunter Henry versus New Orleans. Terrible matchup, but he gets targets. And then Logan Thomas at Chicago tonight, I think, is a good play. He's been getting quite a few targets himself. The last thing I want to talk about, so that way we can just be in agreement a little bit. Jonnu Smith, man. Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts. Did you know? As you can see, I got Kyle Pitts all the way down there at 24, and that's not too low. Did you know that Kyle Pitts has 21 targets this year through 4 games? That's not bad, right? You know how many Jonnu Smith's got?
30.
20. He's 1 target behind Kyle Pitts. This is a freaking tight end timeshare, which is ridiculous. And then on top of that, do you know how high Jonnu Smith is ranked right now in terms of tight ends overall in total fantasy points scored?
15.
10. He is a top 10 freaking tight end while Kyle Pitts is sitting in the 30s. If you have Kyle Pitts, drop his ass to the wire in redraft leagues. He is worthless. This offense does not care about him. His offensive coordinator and head coach do not scheme anything into this for him. He's not worth rostering in redraft leagues. Go get Jonnu Smith. He's a better play every week. He'll have better games than Kyle Pitts will. I just want to go on that tangent because I'm tired of seeing Kyle Pitts in lineups. I get Kyle Pitts questions pretty much every single week. And almost every single time I say, yeah, get him out of there. It's gross. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah, Falcons might want to figure it out because everybody wanted them to be the winners of that division. And it looks like it's probably going to be Tampa, maybe the Saints if they get healthy. And I never thought the Falcons were going to do anything anyway. So,
good for you, man. I hope that Pitt scores nothing since you're playing again. I hope you mean playing against you. I mean, I should say that. If not, there are 23 other guys here with probably most of them on waivers that I would play over Kyle Pitts this week.
Yeah,
that's a suggestion. Goodness gracious. We'll end the show with a couple of questions. We got Victor Molina. I apologize. What running back could I trade Kyren Williams for? He says, what running back could I trade Kyren Williams for? I don't trust him now that Kupp is back and the Rams don't really rely on the run. It's interesting. I feel like pretty much everyone is pretty high on Kyren right now. I sold him in a dynasty league for a second-round pick, and then Twitter told me I got fleeced. I didn't think I got fleeced on that, but okay. That's fine. They thought I should have got a first-round dynasty pick for Kyren Williams. I don't know what you think about that, but that's. I mean,
he's really young. He's really young, but I don't know if the Rams are going to have him be the guy for many years. You know, this might be just a filler thing. They probably sign somebody in the offseason or draft somebody next year. Ryan Rivers actually got some decent carries last week too. Not claiming that he's taking over, but
Kyron's dealing with a nagging. I think it's a hip injury, if I'm correct. It's like,
yep.
It's not going to limit him or cost some time, but like they know that they can't keep giving him 100% of the work, which he literally got for like 3 weeks in a row. So they're going to have to spell him a little bit. I mean, he's a top 10 back in redraft right now, pretty much by everyone's thought. So what do you think who do you think you should target running back wise for him? There's got to be some buy low guys that you might be able to get Kyren for. Do you think that you could get package Kyren and maybe like a bench wide receiver for a Tony Pollard who had a down week last week and he's got San Francisco this week?
I still like Pollard over Williams, so I don't know if somebody
like because he's looking to trade him away. So maybe
I mean if you could do Kyren for Pollard straight up, I would do that. I mean, some people might look at that and say, "Oh, Williams is doing better right now," and I would rather have that. But I like Pollard. consistency wise for the rest of the season. I'm trying to think of other guys. I mean, you could probably. I mean, there's some guys that are kind of flopping right now. Like Josh Jacobs hasn't been good. You could potentially, get a couple of pieces, maybe do like a Brees and another receiver or something, like a Gibbs and another something. But Williams has got a lot. If you're going to sell Williams now, you got to sell him high, because this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I like the maybe get Brees plus for Kyron. I think you could do that. I know that the thing is the Brees hype has been real this week, so I don't know if you're going to be able to do that depending on how the manager feels about him right now. Maybe get Ramondre plus. Ramondre's got a great schedule. Get extra pieces, but because Kyron was a waiver ad or a last round pick, I think if you load up as much as possible, or even get a 1-for-1 like Tony Pollard, you're going to win out just fine if you don't believe that he's going to sustain what he's done. And I get the fear. A no-name. Matt's talked about Kyron Williams a lot. He's the most diehard Notre Dame fan that I know. He watched him all through college. He's surprised he's even starting on a roster. So, like, I totally get it. He's proved it over 4 weeks, but like we talked about last year, CEH was the RB3 last year and through 4 weeks. Things change, man. Things change quick. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. If you have other questions once the show goes off, just go to my Twitter at @FTP and send me what trades you got going on, and I'll tell you which ones are good or bad. And then, quickly says he's already got Laporta in as a starter, but Ertz is on waivers. Should he pick him up to drop Pitts to avoid seeing him later in the year in his lineup? Abso-freaking-lutely. Get Pitts out of there. Pick up pretty much anybody over Pitts. Pitts is not only a terrible fantasy tight end that you would have to start depending on your situation, but he's essentially a roster landmine that's taking up a space and doing nothing for you. Drop him.
Yeah,
get them out of there.
Your bench should be handcuff running backs, maybe like a boom bust receiver that you can use on bye weeks. Same thing with the tight end. If you can get somebody like Ertz, I mean, there's not really that many you could do from the tight end position. And then maybe a backup quarterback. That's what your bench is for. It's not to house, anything else other than that. I know guys who house a bunch of wide receivers, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like Robert Woods and this and that. It's like, I don't think those guys are really horrible, but how many times are you going to play those guys? Like, if you really think about it, you got to save your space.
I read this wrong, and I want to apologize for that. He says, no, he's going up against Pitts this week, so good on you. Great for you, man. You're going to be fine. He says he'd be giving up Njoku for Ertz. That Njoku is his bench tight end. I would rather have Ertz. Njoku through 4 games has done nothing. And I know last week he had the rookie, but he had his most targets last week, and he still didn't do anything with Thompson Robinson in there. Deshaun Watson he's spreading the ball around enough to where I'm not going to hold him. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would go for Ertz. I would go for Ertz over Njoku. Plus, Ertz's schedule is great. Like, it's not just this week. He's got, I think it's 7 of the remaining 13 games are top 10 matchups for fantasy tight end. So, he says, now you're good, man. Appreciate the help. Absolutely. Thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. Like, subscribe, the whole 9. Trevor looks at bench of starters. Trevor's team is good. He's got a good team, so I'm glad he's having fun with it this year. Guys, that's going to be it for us. We've gone over an hour now, so we're going to leave it there. Like I said, if you have not already, please subscribe to both Let's Talk Sports and Fantasy Football for the People's YouTube channels. Like the video, share it around. Everyone that commented, I really appreciate you because you guys make the show just go. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Thursday night game completely or my rankings, and I don't ever want to because if we're answering your questions, I'm helping you more directly that way than anything else. Matt, why don't you plug your stuff for the week, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, we got the Let's Talk Bet show on Wednesday, full-fledged into MLB playoffs, and, of course, obviously all our daily picks Wednesday through Monday now. The only day Actually, we might be able to do Tuesdays now for the next 50 days straight.
You're such a bastard, Trevor.
We get 50 straight days of football, including Tuesday. So we'll probably do a pick of the day each day next week. Scott did pretty good last week. I did pretty average, and Tanner was the loser of the week. So we'll see what happens this week. Marty up 1-0. Tanner took a nerfy last night, and it failed. And then the Brewers lost, so he was probably reeling. But yeah, join us at 5:30 on Wednesdays Eastern time.
Yeah, it goes up on both channels on Let's Talk Sports, and I have it on the Fantasy Football for the People channel as well. Because I mean, I've said it before. All betting is fantasy football when it comes to football. It doesn't matter if you're playing our weekly leagues, dynasty leagues. If you're betting, it's still fantasy football, man. So all the information going around helps quite a bit. Saturday will be my favorites and fades, just like every other week. You guys did awesome last week, and I had my most views on that video by quite a bit compared to the last 3 weeks. So I appreciate that. I'm putting all the shorts, which are just every one of those individual favorites and fades, cut up into small videos on YouTube and on TikTok. So if you don't want to watch the whole thing and you're just looking for one specific guy, you can go through all the shorts. You can go through all the TikToks. They'll be all completely posted by Saturday night. I have 6 going tomorrow and then 6 going on Saturday. And then the article that I just put out. I just put out an article on yards per fantasy. Everybody had a ton of trade questions today. I've got 13 guys that you need to go trade for right now based off of upcoming schedule being as easy as possible and their involvement over the first 4 weeks. Spoiler alert, a lot of the guys we talked about were in there. Breece Hall, Zach Ertz, just a lot of different guys that have these really good upcoming schedules and have done well or are getting back to form. Guys that you need to go grab right now if possible. Justin Fields is another one of those guys as well because his upcoming schedule is chef's kiss beautiful. So go check that out. That's at yardspr.com. You can go find the link of that in the description of the video. And that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time.